An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
That an agent, again, going to secure the gun. If you watch this, it appears that maybe they secured the gun before shots were fired.
Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene.
But again, an investigation is playing out. You heard DHS's side. You've obviously heard the rhetoric that has come out thus far. But overall, analyzing this situation, what is this investigation going to entail? Is it more than just the video?
Well, yes, it's more than just the video. It's the forensics of the angles of the 10 bullets that entered his body. The bullets entered his body from his back because he had been temporarily blinded by pepper spray and was on his stomach on the frozen earth. The investigation will also interrogate eyewitnesses and, more importantly, it will interrogate the agents who were there. What were their mental impressions at the time? Why did they decide to shoot somebody after they had disarmed him and who was already on the ground? To me, their shooting is indefensible, but I understand that there's going to be an investigation.
Right.
A federal investigation, not a state investigation, which will bring us to what I know you want to talk about next.
Control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen. This individual.
Can the feds keep this information, killing on a street by police of a citizen, away from the state whose principal job is to maintain safety on the streets?
This individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officers. They responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign.
The crowd stretched for blocks. Gun rights advocates pouring into Richmond from across the country.
All the way from Arizona to stand against the tyranny of an illegal government.
There were plenty of heavily armed demonstrators on the streets around the Capitol.
A couple things are clear. One is that Secretary Noem did not have all the facts before her when she made that statement. He was not brandishing the gun. The gun was on his person lawfully, and then it was removed before he went down and before he was killed. So I don't know what the threat was. She said he was shot defensively. I don't know what the threat was that these people felt.
But as Secretary Noem said, no one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest.
We lure you in this way so that you can find out that, we're just normal Americans.
This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement.
Security was tight, hundreds of police, some on rooftops. There was even a surveillance drone.
I hope to God nothing bad happens.
It's a public accommodation, which means it invites the public to come on its property. And when the public comes on its property, the public doesn't shed any of its constitutional rights. It couldn't do that any more than it could say, I don't like your lawfully carried gun on your belt, because each is a fundamental liberty protected from interference by the Constitution.
What about cities and states? What about their legal rights and obligations?
You know, when the Supreme Court decided Heller versus the District of Columbia, Heller is a federal police officer who could carry his gun at his work but not in his house. The Supreme Court said the District of Columbia, because it's owned by the federal government, cannot interfere with guns because the Second Amendment insulates the government from interfering with that.
That has to apply to cities and states.
Otherwise, the Second Amendment would be meaningless. By calling the right to keep and bear arms a fundamental liberty, that means it's a natural liberty. It's a modern-day version of self-defense. self-defense. And no government can interfere with it unless the person has interfered with somebody else's liberty. When they wrote the Bill of Rights, they already knew what the states permitted. They weren't worried about more power to the states. They were more worried about more power to the central government. But after the Civil War, the Supreme Court began to find each of the rights in the Bill of Rights insulated from state infringement as well as from federal infringement.
And how was he using that handgun in terms of threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
That's something that I will let the DHS and the prosecutors, because they are the ones investigating that case. I don't want to stylize that evidence.
If you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
Your reaction?
I think that type of rhetoric is exactly what's leading to violence against law enforcement that is totally baseless and unnecessary. And for the state CEO to do that against our law enforcement community is disgusting and revolting. And it should be examined thoroughly as to anyone who's involved in inciting this type of violence. It is absolutely improper, unlawful, and will not be tolerated any type of violence against law enforcement.
People are mad at ICE and want Border Patrol to stop. You saw what's happening right now in Minneapolis. People are protesting in the streets, pushing Border Patrol out. How will this end?
The guy with the gun means there's less crime. Wherever there are guns, the murder rate goes down.
Law enforcement will hold the day. The Constitution, the rule of law will hold the day. It is a tough time right now, but I believe that our law enforcement officials on the ground, DHS, FBI, local police force across the country are moving in the right direction, and we will quell these riots and we will prevail. That's what we always do. As Christy said, you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence. We will, of course, always protect your First Amendment speech.
Of course they would.
Your new book just came out yesterday. What's the name of it?
I'm joking. Forgive me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lies the government told you.